In this video, we want to talk about some of the basics of ACLs, access control lists, or some people call those ACLs. And what they typically do for us is to block traffic or to allow traffic. We can say we want to permit telnet traffic, for example, from a certain host coming into a router going to a certain server. We can be very specific with these ACLs, and when we apply them to a router interface, we need to ask ourselves, are we applying these in the correct direction? Does it make sense to apply this filter, this ACL, this list of rules as traffic is coming into the router, or does it make more sense to apply it to traffic going out of the router? And many people think that's where the job of an ACL stops. We're either permitting traffic or we're denying traffic. But ACLs can also be used to match traffic. And as you go deeper into your Cisco studies, you're going to see lots of times where an ACL is going to act to classify traffic or to match traffic that we want to treat in a certain way. As just a couple of examples, in QoS, quality of service, we might use an ACL to match traffic that we then want to give priority treatment. And with policy-based routing, we might want to do some non-default routing based on packets that match a particular access list. So ACLs are not just used for permitting traffic and denying traffic. Typically that's the job, but keep in mind they can also be used to match traffic. And our focus in this lesson is going to be on that traditional role of permitting or denying traffic. And as you think about an ACL, I want you to imagine a listing of rules. Each of these rules are called an ACE, an ACE, an access control entry. One ACE is one rule in our list, and we can have a bunch of rules in that list. And as you're imagining that list of rules, it's key to understand we're going to start doing our evaluation, our processing at the top of the list and work our way down. And if we match a rule, for example, there's a rule that says, allow everybody from this network to go to this other network. If we match that, then we're done. We stop evaluating the ACL for that packet. Even though further down in the ACL, there might be another rule that says, oh, there's an exception. Don't allow this client to go to this network. No, that's never going to be evaluated because the packet has already been permitted. And since we're processing top-down, we typically want to put the more specific rules at the top. If we're blocking or permitting an entire network, that might go towards the bottom of the list as compared to permitting or denying a particular protocol for a particular host. That's more specific. We might want to put that towards the top of the list. But make sure that your listing of ACEs, your listing of rules, makes sense for your particular application. Another key consideration when working with ACLs is to remember there is an implicit deny any at the bottom. In other words, I've got this list of rules and I'm evaluating a packet. And if the packet doesn't match the first rule or the second rule or any of the rules that I've entered, there is an implicit rule at the bottom of that list that it will match because that matches everything. And that rule is an implicit deny any. It says deny everything. That means if a packet is not permitted by a rule that we enter, it will be denied by that implicit deny any rule at the very bottom of our list. And as we create our ACLs, we can create them as numbered ACLs or named ACLs, and we'll take a look at both approaches in this lesson. And we'll also contrast standard ACLs and extended ACLs. The most important thing to know about a standard ACL is that it's only going to permit or deny a source, and it's going to deny it for all IP traffic. For example, a standard ACL cannot say, I want to block just telnet traffic coming from this host, but you can say, I want to block all IP traffic coming from this host, but you cannot specify a destination. If you want to specify a destination and be more specific about the protocol you want to permit or deny, then you'll probably want to use an extended ACL because that can specify your source and your destination, and you can be specific as to which protocol you want to permit or deny. You might say, for example, you want to permit TCP port 443 to permit HTTPS traffic. And you might want to block TCP port 80, which is HTTP, the non-secure version. Now let's get started with the syntax in our next video as we consider how to configure a numbered standard ACL. I'll see you in that video in just a moment.